forget. I've been cutting off my announcement period lately. So with us today, of course, you're all here to hear from Hope for Creation, program entitled Faithful Stewardship, Flourishing Community. They're now the Southwest Michigan chapter of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. They are doing some amazing stuff, all sorts of different initiatives. And I believe we have a relay, yes, is the word, a bevy of Hope for Creation folks with us today to tell us about everything they're doing and how we can get involved. Thank you so much for being here, for being a member of the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, and for all you do. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Denise. And thank you so much for inviting us to come and to talk to you about the work that Hope for Creation is doing. We are a grassroots interfaith group that works to support faith-based climate action in the Kalamazoo area. You know me, I'm Sibel Shattuck, but you may not know that I am on the Green Sanctuary Committee at People's Church, where I keep my feet on the ground to see, I don't just study it, I try to walk the talk. We come from diverse faith traditions, but we all share a conviction that our faith traditions teach the people and the planet flourish when social and natural communities are in harmony. And clearly climate change is proof of disharmony, that things are not going well and people are not in right relationship with the natural environment. So we are certain that if we want to live our values, we are called to the great work of seeking balance and justice on Earth. This project began in 2014 when clergy and lay leaders from the Bronson Park churches, Temple B'nai Israel, the Sisters of St. Joseph, and Kalamazoo College Chapel all got together to organize a series of events on faith and climate change. They were inspired by Bill McKibben's visit to Western the previous fall, and were really trying to think through, what does it mean to be people of faith in this time? How are we called to respond to this great crisis? So for 4 weeks, there were a series of Monday evening presentations, followed by small group discussions in different congregations. And those presentations focused on things like how Michigan will be affected by climate change and what faith communities around the United States are doing in response to climate change. And the fourth day was sort of a culmination where people were brainstorming what sort of activities people of faith right here in Kalamazoo could do, and then forming task forces to go out and do projects like increasing native plant garden space on church grounds, or lobbying for climate action locally and at the state level. And we thought that would be it, right? And end of project. But the Reverend John Boley, who was the senior pastor at that time for First United Methodist Church, commented that those 4 weeks had been amazing because between 150 and 160 people had gathered each week to talk about climate change together. And there was just such energy there. He felt we should try to keep that energy going. So that's how we came to create the Hope for Creation planning team, which then continued to organize 1 or 2 large events each year in which we would bring in a public speaker and gather people from the faith community to learn about and think about how to respond to climate change. These events were great. We'd have between 75 and 100 people, but we also noticed we were getting a lot of the same people. So it didn't seem like we were really educating new people. What seemed to be most valuable about those events is that we were creating opportunities for fellowship amongst people with similar concerns. And so we shifted our focus more to emphasize support for green teams, or for people in congregations that wanted to create green teams so that they could start implementing energy efficiencies and reducing their carbon footprints. And just an example of the sort of fruitful interactions that come out of that kind of collaboration. A couple of years ago, Westminster Presbyterian Church put up solar panels. And so then the Green Sanctuary Committee at People's Church heard about that. So we reached out to Westminster and they told us they worked with Helios Solar. And so we started talking to Helios, and then a member of the Westminster congregation who was a lawyer and had helped draw up the contract for the solar panels installed at Westminster, volunteered to come over and do the same work at People's Church. So then People's Church became the second church in the area to have solar panels. So it's this fruitful collaboration, both for moral support and for practical support. We also have started developing more programs around personal faith, programs for eco-spirituality, where we create rituals or liturgies to help people process their eco-grief, and also to celebrate how their faith does connect to the natural environment. And we take seriously our potential to do work in community advocacy and community work by bringing the voices of the faith community into the public square. So we were one of the organizations that was making a presentation in support of the Declaration for a Climate Crisis declaration here in Kalamazoo. Today, you'll hear about a number of the activities we're doing in all of these areas, but I wanted to make a note that we would welcome additional people, whether they're interested in forming a green team in their own congregations, people of faith who may not have a congregational home, and also we'd be glad to hear from secular groups who wish to collaborate on projects, because we want to work to make our community safe, just, and sustainable. Now I'd like to introduce Ruth Mordyke, who will speak about principles we've developed to help us collaborate respectfully with people from diverse religious and social groups.
So, good afternoon. I'm Ruth Mordyke, and I'm the pastor of Skyridge Church, and I've been a member of Hope for Creation for about 3 years now. Before I begin talking today, I just want to give you a few seconds to review the document on the screen. What's there is the first 3 of, I think, 6 points that are part of our relational covenant. So could you scroll down further now, Joan? So what you're looking at is Hope for Creation's relational covenant. We actually completed this document in its current shape before formalizing a document describing benefits and expectations between participating or potentially participating organizations. It seemed important to establish a set of understandings to underpin and guide our work together as individuals within the group. In many ways, of course, it's an aspirational document that speaks to our intention to draw together people and organizations from a breadth of faith traditions, as well as people who are spirit-oriented in some way without participating necessarily in a particular group. Agreeing upon and holding ourselves to the 5th point, for example, is a huge goal all by itself. We agree to respect, honor, and learn from the diverse understandings and varied languages regarding the divine. This is a daunting goal, but absolutely vital at this point in the world's history, given that history is jam-packed with violence, willful ignorance, condemnation, proselytizing, and enmity between religious faiths, and oftentimes even among people of the same broad faith tradition. We want to be clear that people of all paths are welcomed and honored, and that we seek to learn from one another. And like everything else in this document, we still have a lot to learn about that. Hope for Creation also commits itself to respecting and learning together from other aspects of human diversity, experience, and identity. We seek to welcome people as they are. And we intentionally sought to state that commitment in positive terms rather than putting together a standard non-discrimination statement. This covenant also takes a further step by recognizing historic injustices and the inequities they have created among peoples. Hope for Creation commits to countering these unjust power dynamics in our own quote, discussions, decision-making, and other interactions, end quote. This, we know, is a lifelong process and an ongoing learning together. Overall, I guess, I would say that this statement describes and frames the need to restore harmony, or to restore shalom, to restore peace and honor in human interactions, to grow a mutually honoring, healthy, thriving, and resilient human ecosystems. And that work, of course, naturally dovetails with efforts to love, strengthen, and restore a thriving and diverse ecosystem for all of the earth. After all, the way we treat one another shapes the way we treat the rest of the planet. The two are bound together inextricably, and this document is an effort to make that point clear in the ways that we function and operate and relate together. We need to recognize that how we treat one another shapes how we treat the rest of the world. And Hope for Creation intends to do that in everything that we do. I want to thank you for your listening. And a man named Rick Welch, who's a member of First Congregational Church, is up next to talk about one of our projects. Thank you.
The host has to, there we go. Hi, I'm Rick Welch, and I'm from First Congregational, as Ruth said. And there we go. Oop. Pinch for bigger view. Yes, so I'm here to announce, well, I thought it was announced, but the launch of the pilot program from the city of Kalamazoo and us and other interested groups that have been instrumental in this forming this project. It's been a bit of a pull for a few months, and okay. No. Anyway, I got derailed here. So we're starting this tomorrow morning. Okay, 10 a.m. Bring your styrofoam, your EPS, which is expanded polystyrene. We're using the trade name on that. And oh, there we have the map of the place, 251 Mill Street, Kalamazoo. And as you enter off of Mill Street into their parking lot, we want you to bear to the right to find this semi-trailer, which we will be filling with styrofoam. Okay, and so we'll make a little bit of a line, and we'll have boxes and cartons and whatnot to take styrofoam out of your car, and we'll be packing this trailer with it. So we need your cooperation and help with this. So we're using the expanded polystyrene name, which is the generic name. Styrofoam is a trade name that is often used in insulation, which in our process here is not going to be acceptable. It either has insulation either has a sheet formed onto it, bonded to it, which makes it not recyclable, or it has fire retardant in it. And in those cases, you can often smell it. We're looking for a product that has the number 6 stamp in it. And if your styrofoam does not have that on it, one of the tests that we do is to bend it to break it. And if it breaks readily, it is acceptable. If it bends and is spongy, no go on that. So we need to be very careful with the insulation and that part of the project. So here's the result we're looking for. What denotes success to us? And that is when we fill the trailer, which you will contribute to, when we fill a trailer and it gets moved out, that's a trailer full, not going to the landfill. We want to keep this stuff that lasts for what, 2,000 years out of the landfill. And if you participate, it will work. And if you like this result, we want you to lend a hand to us. It's not heavy work, it's not long work, but we can always use a little help. So tomorrow is predicted to be a little rainy, but I've got a raincoat and so do the other people that are going to be there, but we're going to be looking for you. And one of the little sidelines is that you'll be able to go to the farmer's market afterwards. Okay. And I have heard this on the news too. I heard it on NPR this morning, WMUK. So I'm not the first telling this story. So very good. Terry will follow me up here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Terry, and I'm coincidentally at the Churchwomen United States Convention on another Zoom picture. So enjoy the background that I uploaded. First of all, we're here. Thank you, Rick, for handing the baton to me. You're a tough act to follow because you are a man who walks this talk, and I really appreciate being on this committee with people that commit and follow through, and they practice the golden rule. And you'll notice throughout my presentation, I have a bunch of graphics. I'm typically working with young people, and I feel like pictures tell 1,000 words, so why insult people? So we do not inherit our earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our kids. And once I thought that what I was doing wasn't important, and then I figured out who was watching. We must act accordingly. Ecclesiastes 9 and 10 says it best. I put it in 3 different translations, but basically we are all a winning team and we must do our best to support our planet. Go team. Individually and collectively, we have thoughts, words, and deeds that we can impress upon people. And I put in the chat, let's get up to some better good trouble. We must practice hospitality, being tender, compassionate, sympathetic, tolerant. We must, because at some point we're going to be all of these when we age. And the biggest bonus today are the 9 things that I'm encouraging everybody to do. Have you ever thought about just getting some plastic containers? And when you go to a restaurant, of course, not a buffet, buffets are closed, but to actually take your own to-go container, you know, when you go to those big restaurants and they are going to give you way too much food. And also many restaurants will bring you a pitcher of beverage to your table, whether it's water or tea or lemonade or a beer. Bring your Yeti and save a cup and save the planet. Reuse styrofoam cups, choose paper plates, avoid styrofoam egg cartons, convince the grocery store to cut styro altogether. Just talk to the meat department and see what else they can offer, and they'll work with your school system. Reduce and reuse styro packing peanuts. I put mine in my pillowcases on my couch, and the stuffy pillows that I have in the house right now, because my daughter's pledging sorority, so everything in our house is pink and green, and it's exploded with those extra peanuts that have come in the mail. And by all means, please recycle all parts of your styro. Please practice and show up to Rick's suggestions. Remember, we're tired of the excuses. Excuses are the tools. Happy Earth Day, everybody. It was yesterday. Today is Earth Day. This week is Earth Week. Just do it forever. And remember that we want to recycle, reuse, and rejoice. This is a spiritual thing, hope for creation, and we want everyone rejoicing because we're saving our planet. And remember that our planet's ills are connected. When the I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness. Our wellness is at stake. So let's do all we can to protect our planet. Every day is Earth Day. Thank you so much, and I'll pass it on the baton on to Joan Hawkshurst, who is from Temple Benet, and she's our illustrious leader. And I so appreciate her hospitality and her efforts to keep us together. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Terry. Speaking of a hard act to follow, that was wonderful. I am Joan Hawkshurst. I am a member at Temple B'nai Israel and have the honor of serving as a part-time coordinator for Hope for Creation. I'm going to take just a couple minutes to talk about another initiative of ours currently and where it came from. One of the things that we have noticed is that mostly Hope for Creation has attracted involvement from people, white people, who are part of suburban congregations. And we recognize, as Ruth so eloquently said at the beginning when we talked about our relational covenant, that we need to make sure that we're including all voices and all perspectives on the divine and all of the different ways that people of faith are understanding how to care for creation and how to steward the resources of our planet. One of the ways we have thought that we could do the practical work of caring for the soil and also the meaningful relationship work of connecting across difference is through gardening. And we've noticed that there are gardens in communities, gardens in neighborhoods, and gardens in congregations around town. And so one of the things that we are actively engaged in 2021 is building relationships between congregations by working together on community gardening and congregational gardening, with the hope that those relationships will flourish in a way that we can then leverage them to do more systemic kinds of change, to really focus on ways that we together can address some of the structural issues that are preventing some folks in some places from having all of the opportunities that we would wish for. So one of the things that we've done is build a conversation with folks who manage congregational gardens in different parts of our community. We called it Soil and Spirit, and we talked about cultivating the connections between faith and gardening. We were able to highlight the Hope Garden, the garden at Westminster Presbyterian Church, the Jubilee Garden at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, and an exciting collaboration, the Growing Community Garden, that is actually a collaborative effort between Sunnyside United Methodist and Fresh Fire African Methodist Episcopal Church over off of Gull Road. And what we tried to do was get the folks who are digging in the soil and also worshiping to make that connection more apparent to the folks who were in the audience. So we asked questions like, how does your faith connect to growing food? Why is it important to you to care for the soil? And what advice would you have for other congregations who are seeking to engage in building relationships by developing gardens? Here's just one of the examples of some of the things we learned that day, and I thought just a beautiful sign that really draws strongly the connection between this Lutheran congregation's faith tradition and the work that they are doing to tend the soil and produce crops that are then donated to local food pantries. It's also interesting to us that this year's topic for Faith Climate Action Week, which is this whole week from Sunday to Sunday around Earth Day, is about sacred ground, and again cultivating those connections between food, faith, and climate. So while we here in Kalamazoo are focusing on efforts locally, there are people of faith all across the country who are doing things like blessing gardens and watching movies together. Kiss the Ground is sort of the official film for this year's series. There's sermons that are happening. There are worship services that are focusing on creation care this week, and we've been part of that. I just wanted to point out that we do have a monthly gathering of folks who are interested in this idea of building relationships between people of faith through gardening. Our next one's coming up on May 20th, and we will be co-hosting with Common Grounds, the network of community gardens here in the area, a tour of several congregations gardens. At each stop, there will be an opportunity to learn about a topic of interest to that particular garden, and also to just get to know and see some of the different ways that congregations are using the land and the soil around their buildings in service of people and the planet. And with that, I want to introduce Toby Hannah Davies from St. Luke's Episcopal Church.
Hi, everybody. I'm Toby Hannah Davies. A friend of mine was once so overwhelmed with zucchinis from his garden that he snuck out at night to put them on all his neighbors' porches. This was before the internet, and he was desperate for recipes. Another friend of mine was recently surprised to get a huge rutabaga from one of the local food pantries. She had no idea what to do with it, and she wasn't inspired to look up recipes, so it's now sprouting on her windowsill. So another piece of our Hope for Creation gardening initiative is to provide plant-based recipes timed with the harvests for all the various vegetables that we're hoping for. This one, our Creation Care Pesto, is one example. It's so popular with my family that I now use half of my vegetable garden to grow basil for it. But don't try to take notes. We will put our recipes on our Hope for Creation sites for you. We have many more, like crispy buffalo cauliflower, which is fantastic, creamy wild rice soup, cheesy spaghetti bake with no cheese, the best chili, the best lasagna, easy peanut sauce, banana bread, chocolate chip mocha cookies, and more, all made with no meat, eggs, or dairy. We intentionally, of course, called them Creation Care and purposefully plant-based recipes. Did any of you read the 2019 Community Read book, We Are the Weather? The subtitle is Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast, and the author's Jonathan Safran Foer. In the book, he reveals we have turned our planet into a farm for growing animal products, and the consequences are catastrophic. Only collective action will save our home. And it all starts with what we eat and don't eat. According to the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization, livestock is a leading cause of climate change. Did you already realize that eating less meat and less dairy is a way that we can all help reduce climate change? It's a way that we can make a big difference 1 or 2 or even 3 times every day. Every time people who usually eat meat and dairy enjoy one of our purposefully plant-based recipes instead, we're helping reduce the damage from livestock farming, and we're caring for creation. So we hope that you will use our recipes and share them. Please share them widely. Thank you. Now, Steve Bertman from Temple B'nai Israel is going to talk about his very exciting work on charging stations for electric vehicles.
Thanks, Toby. Right, so this is a project that Hope for Creation is spearheading to increase the availability of charging stations for electric vehicles at houses of worship. Just a little background a little bit of science, can't help myself. Virtually all of modern global warming is due to humans increasing greenhouse gas concentrations. At least 80% of that comes from the burning of fossil fuels, namely petroleum, natural gas, and coal. Another 20% from deforestation, largely to provide space for animal husbandry and other plantation growing, as mentioned before. Carbon dioxide is the most important of these greenhouse gases, and carbon dioxide concentration has increased 15% just in the generation between the time that I graduated high school and my daughter graduated high school. 15% increase in CO2 concentrations. That CO2 comes from the burning of fossil fuels, and it is largely a result of, well, in large part a result of petroleum mining and refining for transportation. And electric vehicles can help mitigate climate change by reducing the emissions of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. And electric vehicles are inherently more efficient. So they will, over their lifetime, produce a significantly lower amount of greenhouse gas emissions, decreasing the impact on the atmosphere. They are already poised to take advantage of the, if you will, cleaning of our electricity supply as more and more renewable sources of energy are used to produce electricity. We don't have to retool the technology. We just use the electricity from cleaner sources. And as the electricity source gets cleaner, so does the impact of our transportation on climate change. There is no tailpipe emission from electric vehicles, so air quality, local air quality is also improved. Estimates by various consumer groups predict that by 2040, 50% of sales of passenger vehicles will be electric vehicles, mostly battery, all electric battery powered vehicles. A small portion will be plug-in hybrids. The growth that is predicted is hindered by three major concerns that are in the marketplace. Number one is the cost of the vehicles. The big part of the cost of the vehicles, part of it is economies of scale, but a big part of it is the cost of producing batteries. And the cost of battery production has dropped exponentially over just the last decade. And so a lot of vehicles are very close to on par with traditional vehicles. The second concern is range. How much charge can a car hold? How far can you drive on a single charge? This also, as battery technology improves, as the size of the market increases, more innovation is leading to increases in range. There are at least a half a dozen vehicles on the market in the United States, in most states, that can get you 250 to 300 miles range on a single charge. The third limitation is, where do I charge my battery? How long will it take? Where can I go to get a fast charge? And this is the limitation that we are addressing in this project. The charging network is also growing exponentially, but there's lots of room for more growth in this area. And so what we are doing is encouraging houses of worship to participate in a program that Consumers Energy has developed called Power My Drive, which is a rebate incentive program for the installation of fast chargers for electric vehicles. There's a residential program, but then there's also a commercial program. And Their main target for commercial properties is private businesses, but they are very excited for houses of worship to participate as commercial properties. Just a snapshot of the program, they provide a $5,000 rebate that covers hardware and installation. Of course, you have to be a customer of Consumers Energy, and you have to install at least two charging lines in order to be eligible for the rebate. They have an approved list of 2 companies, ChargePoint, which has been around for a long time. NLX has a huge presence in Europe and is now starting to grow its presence in the United States. You have to subscribe to network connectivity, so you have to have some way to connect to the internet, have the station connect to the internet, and that station, that connectivity gives you access to their control software that allows you pretty specific control over who gets to use your station, how much they pay for it, and when it's available, and so on and so forth. So you apply for the rebate before installation, you get approved, and then you move forward with your project. So why should a house of worship install a charging station? Number one, in my view, is that it is a public symbol. It's a sign that we are putting our faith values of earth care into action, that we show the world explicitly, show Southwest Mission, show Kalamazoo, that the faith community takes the climate crisis seriously and is willing to be part of the solution. It's a visible statement about the importance of reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. Will help to build this electric vehicle charging infrastructure, so we'll make it easier for electric vehicles to become a big part of our transportation infrastructure. It provides a service for members of congregations, for clergy and other employees of congregations who are interested in driving electric vehicles, and potentially you could attract new members, and provides a service to the wider community. For example, churches that are located in neighborhoods can provide a service for those residents of the neighborhood who don't have other options for charging. And you know, it's an opportunity for the faith community in Kalamazoo to help lead the charge. We are, as we said at the beginning, Hope for Creation is an excited member of the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, so here's the bottom line that most people are interested in. This is a very realistic estimate of costs associated with putting in a charging station at your house of worship. The bottom line is that with the discount that NLX at least has provided for us, and the rebate from Consumers Energy, the pretty much covers essentially all of the cost of the installation of these, unless you have unusual installation requirements, like you have to, you know, run electricity 500 feet across your parking lot or something like that. All of the information from Consumers is on the web, available. What we want to do, though, is we want to bring all of the congregations that have pledged to do this, to have a collective presence through some consistent signage and some PR. So if you are interested or have questions, please contact me, or if you don't want to talk to me, at least let me know that you are moving forward on this so that we can, have a bigger presence. Right now, as I speak, there are 2 congregations that are moving forward on these charging stations. And so in a matter of hopefully another month, I can show you examples of these at houses of worship. So again, please contact me if you are interested or have any questions. I'm happy to talk to you. And I will cede the floor now to my colleague, Eileen Best.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eileen Best from Westminster Presbyterian Church in Portage. Many congregations like ours have a green team or a committee with a similar name that works to educate the congregation on environmental issues and helps the congregation reduce its carbon footprint. We feel that as people of faith, we have a call and a responsibility to care for God's creation. As a way to support those green teams, Hope for Creation offers monthly events on Facebook Live. Sometimes a pre-registration for the Zoom call is required if you would like to participate in the discussion and the question and answer time. Of course, everyone is welcome, whether or not you are connected to a congregational green team. Events vary in topic and style. Events that we've had in the past are things like talks about why to have a green team and how to start one, sharing resources to celebrate Earth Day, the story of how one congregation installed solar panels on their roof, and a Zoom tea, bring your own coffee and tea, to share ideas and resources. Many of our events have highlighted projects that Hope for Creation is working on. A new citywide program to recycle polystyrene, encouraging houses of worship to install charging stations for electric vehicles, like we just heard, and the network we are forming to connect community gardening projects. All of these past events can be found on our Hope for Creation YouTube channel. Our next event will be on June 3rd, and will highlight the art festival at Westminster Presbyterian Church. We now welcome your questions and your comments.
So this is Joan again, just wanting to say thanks to all the folks who took the time to prepare and present today. There's the information on your screen now about how you can reach us or find out more, and we'd be happy to, in the minute or 2 that's left today, to answer questions or hear what you are thinking.
Yay! If you want to stop sharing, you'll be able to see all of us. And let's give them a round of applause. That was fantastic. Oh my goodness. What art are you guys doing?
Tim, you have a question?
No, I just wonder to what extent you're able to, and what efforts you're able to make to reach out to other congregations around the city who are not currently involved.
It looks like I'm fielding that one. No, we are always doing that. So we're hopeful that we're going to get to meet some new folks, both through the polystyrene drop-off opportunity, when we will be there on hand to tell folks about what we do. At our gardening group, we just each signed up to do a one-on-one conversation with a person from a congregation that we've been wanting to get involved with us. So we are finding ways to do the one-on-one work of reaching out and inviting congregations, depending on their interests, to pick a place to get started with us. So if you have ideas, or if you know of congregations, you can field them to us, and we would be happy to try to build those connections. But it is a long, slow process. I talked a little bit about that desire to become a more diverse group of congregations from different parts of the city and county. So we're especially open to help with that.
Could I follow up with just such a suggestion? I don't know if you're aware of a educational effort called Just Faith. You ever heard of Just Faith? And a couple of years ago, our CCL chapter did a presentation at St. Catherine's Catholic Parish on Center Street. as part of a Just Faith, they have a series of, it's a class that they have a series of classes over a number of weeks. So I still can probably get you the name of the person or contact there if you'd like.
Thanks very much for that, Tim. Also, I just want to mention that one of the things that's been sitting on my personal desk for about 6 weeks now is a Post-it note that says draft document about what congregations need to know. So we actually are still putting together some of the information and some of the different ways to approach different groups, faith-based groups in town. But thanks very much for the suggestion.
Yeah. Looks like Jeannie has a question, and then Donna put something in the chat. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi. I go to the Unity of Kalamazoo Church on Whites Road, and they've been doing those styrofoam drives for a couple years, and they do it once every quarter. And this is actually a ruler that was made from the recycled styrofoam. So I was pretty amazed that one of the girls on the team brought that back as a sample. So anyway, they're involved in that.
Well, they don't, yeah, they've been taking it up to Cooper Township. And
Right.
Sibel knows about that. This is an alternative so that Kalamazoo residents aren't utilizing their limited garage space that they use.
Oh, okay.
Volunteered up there to kind of learn the technique. And so we've been in contact with them about trading back and forth. If our trailer isn't totally full, maybe we could get a few bags from them to fill it up, or vice versa. I was really afraid that we'd get too much and would have to take some up to them. And I found out that down at Mayor's Riverfront Park, we have plenty of extra storage, as long as it's short term.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say that one of the things Rick failed to mention is that a woman who used to participate in the Unity Kalamazoo and himself spent a lot of time personally advocating and personally hounding the Environmental Concerns Committee of the city in order to have this happen. And so the initiative for this to happen at all in the city actually came from members of Hope for Creation.
I think I kind of wanted to tell this little story that I kind of look at it as kind of a movement of God, because I had asked people on the city commission to do this project, and they thought I was crazy. And then I bumped into Gene Hess, who was a new commissioner at Park and Walnut coffee place one time, got a little attention with her, and she is the city commissioner on the Environmental Concerns Committee, and she got me the voice, to present to them the first time. So I call that God working with us and for us.
Nice work. That's exactly how it's done. And Rick, I really appreciate it. I did not know the bendy test. Thank you for that. I got a whole pile. I'm going down tomorrow morning. We got students helping to volunteer. And I was worried about a couple items that have been, there was a little, shipping bonanza that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's still in our basement. And I'm a little worried. So I'm gonna go down and bend all my styrofoam now before tomorrow. That's very exciting. Yeah. Donna, you had a question about some of the gardening, the farmers market connection?
Yeah, I just wondered if there was I know they have a lot going on because of the move to the riverfront, the Mayor's Riverfront Park, but I wondered if there might be an opportunity for them to help promote. It seems like the folks that shop at the farmers market would be a natural fit for outreach.
I agree.
Yeah, and I don't know what the timing is, but there was a competition for a mural that was going to go on the side of the trailer there. So I think once that's up, you won't be able to miss it when you're coming to the farmers market.
Yeah.
Is that the trailer that's going to hold the styrofoam, or is that a different trailer?
No, that's a trailer that was gifted to us by Elsie Howard. And it's going to be there permanently, for at least for the first year. And so Dart will come down and empty it out, and that trailer will stay there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought we've got a few minutes here in the formal time. I just wanted to say how much I really appreciated your documents. I saw Donna noticing that too. Really how you, the thought and care that has obviously gone into how you organize yourselves and your relationships, and how you bring folks in is definitely not lost on folks like myself and folks like Donna and all of us in the coalition who try to do that very same thing. I feel like we borrow from Hope for Creation a lot, because in some ways you're a coalition for faith communities, right? And we're a coalition for all the climate stuff. And I just really learn a lot from your documents. In fact, Steve Bertman sent me your consensus principles that I'm pretty much going to copy for the coalition as well. And I just, maybe we could have just a small conversation, some other thoughts. We wrestle, of course, in the coalition with the same issue. There's some different folks here today, and different programs do seem to bring in different facets of the community. And we try to be really varied with that. But preaching to the choir, right, seems an apt phrase to use for Hope for Creation to be here. I do find that we are also preaching to the choir and are trying to continue to brainstorm ways to get other groups involved, get more folks of color involved. All these are, I think, problems that are facing the environmental community kind of writ large. And I just wondered if we might brainstorm on that together for a little bit. And Tom, I see you have your hand up. Ruth, do you want to respond to that? I know you help us out on the coordinating committee as well for the coalition.
Well, I think there was a meeting yesterday of the group that has been focusing on this gardening effort and this building relationships through gardening. And one of the participants on that call has worked with Erase and worked with a number of different efforts over time. And she just named this as a community organizing effort, right? And so that depends, already, that depends a lot on securing time for one-on-one conversations and things like that. And also, and it requires of people that are active in Hope for Creation to get comfortable with just being persistent with making cold calls, right? And just having the confidence and the courage to do that. And I think that over time we will get better at that. I think the gardening effort is giving us some good practice at that. And I have felt hampered by the pandemic in efforts to do that, because I'm much more comfortable with face-to-face conversations. So that just, others will have ideas and responses. That's just and community organizing is a long haul thing, right? It's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to really start building a strong constituency.
Yeah. Joan, do you want to chime in there?
I wanted to just add that I was really moved when 9 members of Hope for Creation volunteered to go to a recent One Place training called So Your Leadership Wants to Be Anti-Racist. and sat through a training where we really learned about this long haul idea and this consistent attention to needing to work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I think that, there might not be easy answers, but the consistent long-term commitment to doing the work is probably where to start. Having a committee that's part of the organization that keeps focusing on that and keeps building the relationships and doing the one-on-one conversations and supports people in the issues that are their issues, right? So, which could be pollution close to a highway that none of us live close to, or it could be asthma and cancer rates in neighborhoods that we don't live in, and what can we do to advocate on behalf of some of those issues as allies?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, Tom.
I have I guess a question, maybe a request from Steve about electric vehicles. So I think I told you before that I walked into a dealership and asked if I could see their EVs and got a blank stare from the salesperson. And, since you're plugged into that community, perhaps you have a better handle on what dealerships have electric vehicles available, and maybe even used vehicles that are available. I think it would be very helpful to people to be able to see where to go. How do I get started?
Yeah,
I would do that, and I'm sure others would.
That's a great idea, Tom. I'm not sure. What do you think is the best venue for that? I guess.
Well, for one, our People's Church is getting into the program. We're going to have a couple of charging stations there, and I'd like to let our congregation know if they're not currently driving an EV, where they could get their hands on one.
So the Kalamazoo Electric Vehicle Association hosts events where they bring a bunch of vehicles to a location. We used to be able to take them for test drive, but in COVIDville, that doesn't happen anymore. But at least you can walk around and kick the tires and hear the enthusiasm. So, I mean, one possibility is that People's Church could host something like that. You had a big enough parking lot for that.
We do.
But yeah, I mean, I think that and the different dealerships have been involved in activities like that. They brought their swag and their cars and their salesmen to those kinds of events. But yeah, it would be easy to put together a small, just a list of where you can get these vehicles. Interesting to me and to, I think, most people interested in EVs. The first Tesla dealership in West Michigan just opened up in Grand Rapids. So now you don't have to drive to Detroit or Chicago to look at or test drive a Tesla. I think that's going to make a big difference in this region.
I was reading an article on EV dealerships, and the American firms, Ford, GM, are treating their dealers really badly, because if a dealer starts selling EV vehicles, they have to be able to service them, which requires different equipment. And GM and Ford are not helping their dealers purchase these additional things.
Interesting.
The European and the Asian companies are helping their dealerships, paying 50 cents on the dollar or something along those lines. But that's one of the reasons that a lot of the American firm dealerships don't have EV in stock. They'll order it, but they won't stock them because it costs $20,000 to $50,000 to bring in some of they need 2 charging stations. They need all sorts of special equipment.
That's really interesting, Nikki. Thank you for that. If you could send me the source of that article.
I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
I do a lot
That'd be
of
great.
reading.
Yeah. I mean, just to give a plug, Denoyer Chevrolet right here on Stadium Drive, they've got a couple of bolts on the lot now notice every time I drive by.
See, and I
And
got
they have a DC fast charging station inside of their repair shop. So it's a little bit of a hassle, but it is available. So I think that they certainly are one place to look.
Well,
Okay, I'll try to find the article for you.
Thank you.
It is past time, so I'm going to formally wrap things up. If folks want to stay on, that's totally great. Let's give everyone from Hope for Creation another quick round of applause for the camera there. Yay, thank you so much. All right.